yes. And one person who certainly deserves a lot of credit for the Detroit Tigers' success this season is manager A.J. Hinch, who, again, I never lost faith in.
Never.
Don't let this silly thing like video evidence of me saying it sway you from the fact that I never lost. I'm kidding.
That was
obviously.
AI.
No, I'm obviously kidding. That was one of my worst takes of all time. It aged terribly. But so I'll start with Broder, somebody who's believed in him this entire time, and you were proven right. Is A.J. Hinch the no-doubt manager of the year this season?
To me, he is. To me, getting into the playoffs makes it a no-doubter. I could see if they don't get into the playoffs, you would give it to me. Stephen Vogt of the Guardians is the only other one in the running. But I think getting this team from where they were, getting this roster to what they are currently still, as much as we love them, let's really look at that roster. For him to get this team into the postseason after that start, after the first half of the season, it's a managerial job for the ages. I think it's a no-doubter.
I like that. A managerial job for the ages. And as we were coming down the stretch, to me, he was a person I was saying, yes, definitely. And if you get into the playoffs, like you said, that's one of those validating, as we say, with Scooble and with Riley Green, how their seasons are now capped off perfectly with this playoff opportunity. A.J. Hinch, and you talk about the storylines right now going up against his former team. Yeah, I believe that this guy has done the best job managing it with the talent or lack thereof.
And before I pass it back to you, Flannel, how he's done it too. Like, I've never seen a manager manage so much. Yeah. Like, I've never seen anything like this. I've seen managers who like to, bunt or hit and run or just, be active throughout the game, really play the matchups, but not playing everyone off your bench most games. Like, every single game he's pulling strings, and it's worked.
Yeah, and to me, yes, A.J. Hinch is manager of the year. And my criteria was the Tigers had to make the playoffs for him to get manager of the year, and they did that. So I'm going to give my flowers. And it's the way that it was done, as Broder said, but I'm going to fixate on the bullpen days and the way that A.J. Hinch had to shift his whole managerial style this year when he needed to. Because remember, at the beginning of the season, you had, Tarek Skubal, Jack Flaherty, Reese Olson, Casey Mize, and Kena Maeda. They had a full pitching staff that looked on paper that it was going to be pretty good. We obviously know what happened to Maeda, and then you saw Jack Flaherty get traded at the deadline. You saw Casey Mize and Reese Olson both miss extended time with injuries. But the way that A.J. Hinch was able to manage those bullpen days is an absolute thing of beauty. Because as you said, Broder, when you're managing a bullpen day, you're going to be using a bunch of pitchers. You're going to have to make decisions. It's not like when Skubal starts where you can just throw him out there and he's probably going to go 7 and you can just kind of chill. These bullpen days, especially when you have somebody go 1 and then somebody go 2 and then 4 and then 3, that's tough. And you also have to worry about keeping those arms fresh, which is another challenge in and of itself, especially with the amount of bullpen days they had. I actually counted with the Tigers. When it comes to just pure bullpen days, I count 33 of them. Most of them in the second half, and that's not all.
Dakota Mullet in the chat said, A.J. Hinch is a mad scientist with baseball. And for me, I'm very confident that this is something he will be able to continue to do here with this Detroit Tigers team. That was what was so crucial for me this season. It was to see how Scott Harris's vision, how does that come more into fruition as the season goes on and he gets more time on the job as he's approaching 2 years officially on the job. And Scott Harris, is he able to not just kind of coach up the players that are already in the system, but based on the players that Scott Harris and the budget that he's able to do, can A.J. Hinch work the magic here? And that's what made me ultimately bullish about this team this season, is that I believed A.J. Hinch was going to be the type of manager that was going to be able to go into the season and find a way to get those situational hits and honestly ride a hot pitching staff the entire season.
But even we didn't anticipate the bullpen days that he'd have to navigate.
No, not at all.
That's a challenge that's
not at all
new to modern baseball, honestly. Sometimes you get those unplanned ones when your starter gets shelled, but this was the only way that the Tigers were going to win moving forward. I think we all thought the season was over at many points throughout the year, but especially when Reese Olson went down, it's like, all right, we're just going to pack it in. And Jack Flaherty got traded. It was like, this season is over. But the Tigers didn't listen to any of us. A.J. Hinch didn't listen to any of us. Guys like Brendan Hanafy and Holton and Brisky and Sean Gunther, they didn't listen to any of us. And those are the guys that were relied upon heavily to complete these bullpen days. And I got to get this out there. Players got to play. Gunther being this good, nobody could have anticipated it. Same with Hanafi as well. You got Holton, you got Brisky starting games. All of that is well and good, but being able to manage these guys, being able to put them in the best situations, not leave them out for too long, not have them face, if you're a left-hander who favors righties, set those matchups up right so that each player can be put up in a perfect position. You absolutely love to see it. And to further my point about the 33 bullpen days, you also had some unplanned pseudo bullpen days in the last couple weeks of the season because Cater Montero, he had 3 starts in September in which he went less than 5 innings. That turns into a bullpen day. Reese Olson, all of his starts when he came back when he was on a pitch count went less than 5 innings. And the Tigers were 3-0 in those games. Casey Mize was 2-0 when Casey Mize had 2 starts in which he went less than 5 innings in September, and the Tigers were 2-0 in those games. So if I'm doing my math correctly, and the Montero starts where he went less than 5, the Reese Olson starts where he went less than 5, and the Casey Mize starts in which he went less than 5 in September, the Tigers were 6-2 in those games.
Wow.
Those are, again, managing that bullpen, getting them in the best situations possible, and shout out to Chris Fetter as well, which, Chris Fetter's not here without A.J. Hinch.
Yeah.
That was his first hire. That was Hinch's first hire. He and Fetter are in lockstep. You got to go take care of Fetter this offseason. Maybe your most important contract to get straightened out this offseason. That there's a ripple effect of keeping Scooble of bringing guys to town when you have Fetter on the payroll. Last thing I'll bring up real quick, because Dakota Mullet points out a great point. He says he really is changing the game of baseball. He says completely pushing the button on the Control-Alt-Delete to bad starting pitching completely out of the game, thus making – looks like a two-parter. But nonetheless, how he's approaching these bullpen days, how he's using the opener. I'm not going to say the entire game of baseball is going to change, but next year we're going to see managers around the MLB start to deploy strategies like this on a week-to-week basis. Maybe they strategize having one built-in bullpen game a week, one less big-time starting pitcher you have to go sign in free agency. There's going to be a lot of ripple effect from that. This is just the first domino to fall. A.J. Hinch has proven it can work. Can it work over a full season, how they're doing it? I don't know about that, but you could see 1 or 2 games in a rotation starting going to a bullpen day.
Hinch just, aside from understanding the technical aspect of small ball, and other teams can try and replicate that from a technical aspect, like Dan Campbell, it just feels like A.J. Hinch has a feel for this.
He does.
Beyond just the technical aspect.
It's the feel for it and the ability to be a leader of these young guys. And he did it in Houston, too, when he was with that Astros team. And I'm so glad he's having success now, aside from, the scandal years ago. But that Houston team, they were young. They were homegrown. It was the Altuves and Springers and Bregmans coming up the ranks. That requires not only a top-notch managing on the field, but also that leadership to develop those players at the major league level. That is a perfect example to start with the Astros. He's now done that like times 10 with this Tigers team because it's about 95% of their roster are, under 24 years old. It's insane. That's crazy.
I want to ask this one question to Broder before we go to break because I think it's important. Do you think they award A.J. Hinch with Manager of the Year?
I actually think they give it to Stephen Vogt. I hope they don't. And he's had a fantastic year. Like, there's nothing against his year, but and they've been good from start to finish. So it's not like the adversity. He's had the story of overcoming adversity. But I do think they overachieved. If I said before the season, I thought the Tigers had a shot to win the AL Central because I didn't think the Guardians were going to be that good. I thought the Royals were going to be okay. I thought the Twins were going to be down and the White Sox were going to be horrible. The Guardians from day one have been there and have been at the top. I just think for me, if you really look at this team and how much Hinch has had to manage, I think you got to give it to him. To me, he's the lock. He should get it.
Yeah, to me, A.J. Hinch is Manager of the Year, but I just want to, and I don't want to be the wet blanket. This isn't what I'm trying to do. They might give it to Stephen Vogt. And Stephen Vogt, he's the first-year manager of the Cleveland Guardians. He has had himself a year as well because Cleveland, let me just give you the stat about Stephen Vogt so you remember this if they give it to him. The Cleveland Guardians had the least amount of quality starts in the American League this year. They were missing Shane Bieber and their offseason acquisition, Alex Cobb, for damn near the whole year. Stephen Vogt had to pull together some pseudo bullpen days when he threw like Carlos Carrasco or Tristan McKenzie out there or Logan Allen. And that bullpen for the Guardians, I know Emmanuel Clase is a superstar, but the way that some of these guys like Hunter Gaddis and Eli Maggin and Tim Herron and Cade Smith, who's a rookie, took leaps themselves. Stephen Vogt's in the conversation. To me, it should be A.J. Hinch 1, Stephen Vogt 2. But if Stephen Vogt gets it, I caution you Tigers fans, and myself included, against getting too outraged.
Similar to probably Dan Campbell last year. It's just a couple well-deserving candidates. So, but where A.J. Hinch is going to be somebody that can definitely kind of make a name, regardless of if he wins that award or not. Go in there and beat your old team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, imagine. I'm not going to go there yet. Too far. Too far. Beat the Astros. Beat the Astros.